right, everybody, welcome. This is meeting 7, I believe. Nobody's correcting me. So 8. This is meeting 8 on December 9th of the Chief Delegate meetings. This will probably be a slightly shorter one, just due to time constraints. You can see we are missing Chris here today. And I think the first thing we're going to kind of dive into is the project updates. Oh, we just lost Lovejoy as well. Hopefully, oh, there he is. Is anyone volunteering to start, or should I start myself?
I can jump on. With Violet Garden, we've just released NFTs. It's looking all right so far. The next feature will be advertisements on a post should you own that NFT, and a bit more polish there, as well as co-signing on every transaction on the Violet Garden contract. So all transactions will be free, not just done with the link or feature in this. So yeah.
Cool. I'll go next. We had an interview come out today with Nova Crypto. So check out Nova Crypto with my interview with him. And I go into EOSP's 2.0, as we're calling it. It's a new incentive model. Quite a few details in there, so check that out. Also in that video description, you'll see the newsletters that our 6 active hives came out with for the month of November. We're just continuing to promote positivity across the network, talk to influencers, create content, podcast videos, articles, translating content, and we're just generally doing the best we can. I'm working on the details of 2.0, getting it in written form to show to the community. I will try to make it a little bit more brief than the original white paper, which I think was over 15 pages. So hopefully by January 1, I will be able to come out with something. And yeah, that's my update.
I'll jump in. This is Lovejoy. I've got my video off because I think my bandwidth is pretty lousy right now. Yeah, we're still moving on a lot of the legal wrangling for the Chief Delegate stuff, and I'm going to kind of take a more active role in a lot of that. Going forward, we had an all delegate call a few days ago, which was pretty good, but pretty low attendance. And the next one's scheduled for December 19th, I believe, at, I want to say it's 0500 UTC, but I'll make sure it's in a calendar. And on that point, Joshua Seymour set up there's a Discord now for Eden, in case that's news to anybody. And so we'll probably start organizing there a little bit more. I think it was the general consensus on that call with the delegates that we were kind of adrift between communications platforms, and it was time to just jump into Discord and give it a shot. So I'm going to just continue to stay engaged with the community. I've been kind of distracted by other projects, but I'm back, and I'll just be your friendly, accessible Chief Delegate. So yeah, continuing to have conversations with people in the community, and like to get everyone organized and pushing in the same direction.
And we'll put the link to the new Eden Discord in the description of this video. So if you want to join, it'll be in the description.
All right. For EOS support, we are still growing, creating content, and helping the community as much as we can. We just added a Turkish agent, so it takes time to train and translate and try to reach the Turkish community, but we are working on it. Hopefully we can have that up and running. We have our platform being built aggressively. It takes a little bit of time to really, put things together, but it's coming along. I've taken some inputs from the Chinese community, how we can better serve their users. And all in all, we are actually working aggressively with the community. We always get things our way in terms of like our new hack that happened by 7:40 or 7:43. We had a report that there was something going on with pizza, and we reached out to the owner and pretty much try to do the best that we can to support the team. So we're just here helping the community as much as possible, and hopefully if anyone has inputs or ideas, they can also reach out and we can implement it into what we are building.
Awesome. On my side, I don't have too many exciting notes about it, except just that progress is still ongoing. I have started like our dog fooding of the account creation stuff we're creating within Unicove, as I think there's a pull request up for it right now, and I haven't had the opportunity to check it in the last couple of days. It's been a little crazy. So I can't really update too much on that, except I know that I'm seeing progress happening in that initiative. I've been talking to a number of the other chief delegates and people outside of the chief delegates about ways to be able to be more effective with the budget that I have as the one that was randomly chosen to basically get a much larger budget. I know I've mentioned this on calls before about like the project that we had planned for was for the normal chief delegate budget, and then the random budget that's been added on top is just kind of this. We've been trying to figure out what we're going to do with it now. I've talked to a number of you about it. We've talked about using it for the website, which I don't think we're going to get an update from today. Does anybody have where that spreadsheet puts data for the proposals? I think that might be Chris.
Chris, yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's just a random aside, but I'm very much actively engaging with a number of people on ways that I can make use of this excess budget. Because clearly I am, without the joint venture, without some sort of community organization with us to be able to deploy it, it hasn't been deployed. And that is, I think, something that we're identifying as something that needs improvement in Eden. And if at the end of all of this, if there's still really not a good place to put some of it, at this point, I'm honestly thinking about funding the Eden development and highlighting this problem and saying, guys, the extra sortition money randomly being assigned, we need ways to be able to collaborate and spend this type of money. So I know I've heard that Dan is looking at some ideas for Eden. I don't know if he's started talking publicly about that. I'll bet you will get an update about that on the next time we get on a call with him. I'm not going to steal his thunder, so won't talk about that. But I also, it could change between now and then. You know, I think he's in a brainstorming place with that right now. But we've clearly highlighted that there is, unless you're just completely running on your own project and going to allocate 100% of your own project to that, there's weirdness around it. And I do still plan on distributing some of it towards the other organizations that are on this call and potentially some other Eden members. So anyways, that is a long-winded way of saying that deploying these budgets has turned out to be a much larger challenge than anticipated.
Yeah, Aaron, there's one thing. There's a group that is printing more equal animals, and they are translating it into German. So I don't know if you might want to reach out to them and see if you can help them out with some donation.
Potentially. Yeah. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Are we good to move on? Did anybody else have any updates that they'd like to share? Nope. All right, awesome. So again, it seems like every couple of weeks we
I
have
think
one of
that's it.
these. Yeah. The current situation that's going on, which, could just be like a reoccurring headline that flashes across the screen as we start talking about whatever is going on right now. We have at this point seen the block producers and block one in these negotiations for weeks now. We've talked about them. And just the situation, where the network's going, who's leading what, development of things that the network's going to need. And as of Tuesday night, I believe it was, hard to say, I guess, because of different time zones. The block producers pulled the trigger on the MSIG, which stopped Block One's ability to be able to access the tokens that were vested in that contract at Genesis. We don't have to get too deep into the details, but we did want to kind of touch on this issue and take a moment for where we think Eden on EOS falls in all of this, this small group. So this isn't, I know I have a bunch of hats, so I'm also a block producer, and this is not my block producer hat. This is my Chief Delegates hat that I'm wearing right now. Personally, it's my belief that through all of this right now, what we need to be supporting is EOS, the blockchain. We are here because of EOS, and we are here to prove through the EdenOS system and Eden processes that these things can bring benefit to something, and our something is EOS. EOS is going through a really crazy situation right now. It has exercised power that it has never before, using processes that I guess they have arguably been used before, but it's been under different circumstances. But these are the systems we have today, as much as we'd like to see other systems in place. Like personally, I'd really like to see a blockchain or many blockchains that are run through EdenOS-like systems, as opposed to being weighted by the size of your wallet. Like that inherently has some weirdness to it, just like proof of work inherently has some issues with it. All of these systems kind of are bound to some sort of metric, except Eden and EdenOS. Like the people are the metric in EdenOS. So anyways, with that being said, personally, and I will give you guys just a second to chime in on this as well. Personally, I think as EdenOS, we need to make sure we're here supporting EOS and the systems that are in place. What we can do, though, is discuss maybe some of the weak points that exist in the system we have and find ways to improve those. This current situation really highlights that there's a lot of differing opinions on how things should be tackled. And in order to really do that, the systems are going to have to be changed. The systems in EOS. Whether or not that actually happens, that'll probably really start being discussed in earnest after things calm down slightly. That's why this is probably not going to be super in-depth conversation about everything that's been going on. This call would be like 6 hours if we did that. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's about just stressing that this EdenOS process that we're in right now and the people that we represent are the people of EOS. Specifically the people that put us here, that pushed us through the rounds, through the Eden election process, and the system that got us here where it was. So do you guys have any additions?
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement on the general sentiment. I'm obviously running EOSBs, and I have a close ear to how people are perceiving EOS in and outside of our community. And I just, if anyone's unaware, if you're upset with how the decision went, the broader crypto space is noticing us in a positive way. So I know there was a little bit of a token pump from the news, and I don't think it's because like the market necessarily liked or did not like what happened, but the yesterday, so we're recording this on the 9th of December. Yesterday, Lunar Crush ranked EOS as the coin of the day. Block Talks featured the top EOS influencers, which by the way, EOSBs is one of them. And then today, Crypto 8s featured EOS as coin of the day. And these have Lunar Crush, hundreds of thousands of followers. These are legit institutions in crypto that are noticing EOS. And so I think that we can all just take a step back for a second and just recognize that people are noticing us in a positive light. And we should take advantage of that, ride that wave. Let's come together and grow the chain that we all love. And we're on the way to do that.
That's a very like meta take on it. I honestly have been so lost in in the deepness of EOS that I haven't seen any of that. So that's cool to hear.
So from my take, I literally jumped on EOS 2017, 2018, because of the fact that I believed in what blockchain was about. Because I was one of those people that in 2009, I was like, man, the economy is not doing too well. So I was against some of the ways that our institutions were doing things. So for once, I thought the little man had a voice, or they can actually have control of their wallet or their money. So EOS meant something to me, or it means, let me put it like that, it means something to me. So with everything that's going on, I looked at it and I was like, okay, so what is it that is very, very valuable to us, Aaron, like you stated? And I was like, okay, it's EOS, right? EOS the network. So no matter what the situation is, we have consensus processes in place, which we all agreed to when we were buying EOS. And a decision was reached, which no matter what you do, a lot of times people are not going to be happy with decisions all the time. But at the end of the day, as a EOS community, we are hoping that at least, we can just look at the processes like you were saying, Aaron, so that we can fix some of the issues that EOS have and build a network. And as Eden members, that's what we are tasked with, to help make EOS, the currency in the network, very valuable. So at least, my take is blockchain is very important, and EOS is one of it. It's a blockchain that uses a different type of algorithm, which is DPoS. And a consensus was reached. Whether the community reached that consensus or did not reach consensus, we all agreed to it. The last 3.5 years, yeah, we've been using it. So at this point in time, we come together as a community, as a group, and whichever part that we can fix, we fix it. The parts that we cannot fix, we talk about it and try to hash things out, and we move together, because tempers are very high. So I feel like the community is just on a very high note right now. So we just have to taper it down a little bit, and I think we will all be fine. That's my take on it.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I'd add to that is like, there are, in these heated moments, mistakes being made, whether it's people are being too aggressive or they're saying things that aren't true. I would hope that after, things cool off a little bit, that people are willing to come forward and say, like, shake hands and be like, sorry, that was too much. Hopefully we'll see that. That'll, I think, ultimately create a stronger community in the end. So I certainly hope that as Eden members, we can do the same and make sure we're coming to common ground, because this process is about finding consensus. You can respectfully disagree about something. John or Lovejoy, did you have anything to add?
I've been wondering if I wanted to chime in or not. Nah, keep calm and carry on.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys have covered it pretty well from my end, so I'll leave it at that. Plus, I'm also driving again.
All right. Yeah, I think over the coming weeks, we'll probably still have some conversation happening about this, and we'll have more formed opinions. This is still a pretty fresh situation that it's not all conclusions have been drawn. Like there's things still ongoing. So yeah, I guess leading into that, Jesse?
Yeah, so I wanted to maybe talk about a video that, or it wasn't video, it was an audio that James Mark came out with. It's about 8 minutes. And I thought he brought up some really interesting points about how EOS DPoS works in general. He also commented on the current situation. He gets pretty nuanced, and I'm not going to go through all that he said. Just a brief summary. He introduced the difference between 1 token 30 votes and 1 token 1 vote. And he made the conclusion that because we use 1 token 30 votes, it makes it more difficult for the BPs to necessarily represent the community. So he's claiming that the BPs don't necessarily represent the community. And so he suggested, and I thought it was interesting that, and this is a question I'm posing to my fellow chief delegates here. Whether it's this situation or other situations, doesn't matter. Should the BPs put more work through polls, AMAs, etc., to find whether a certain decision has community consensus? And so yeah, that's the question.
I think so. I mean, I've been pretty deep in the conversations on this specific situation for the past 20, weeks realistically, but pretty much constant for the past 24 hours. And I think being able to, it's going to have to be stake weighted, because that's the basis of our consensus algorithm right now. But it would be really great. I mean, we have the on-chain referendum system that could be used, but the interfaces for it currently never caught on. Like there's nowhere I can point you to. I went and looked on blocks.io the other day and I was like, did they have an interface? And I couldn't find it anymore. So I don't know what happened there. But yes, I think that being able to, especially after a decision like this, being able to say, hey, token holders, like, was this the right move? And it could be used proactively as well, but retroactively, especially in this situation, could provide a lot of feedback. I would put that the one caveat to that is that when we did have the referendum system, like actually in use, and we had some interfaces and some engagement was pretty low. So I think that also stems from the fact that a lot of people don't actually withdraw their tokens from exchanges, so their voices aren't meaningfully heard. But as the technology improves, hopefully we can encourage more people to be able to take advantage of that stuff.
Yeah, and he actually went so far as to say that his next project, he wants to build interfaces for these systems. That is what James is most passionate about going forward.
That's awesome.
He said something that really I've been thinking about, which is transparency. the BPs, in his opinion and in my opinion, are not transparent enough to the community. And in this current situation, he recognized the lack of transparency on both sides, from the BPs who, like he said, there's not referendums, AMAs. From Block 1, obviously, they have a long history of a lack of transparency. And from the ENF, who the proposal had to be leaked, and maybe the leak was on purpose, but it was only a couple days before. I think James said it was about 48 hours before the actual deadline. And so I would like to see more transparency on all sides, and I wish James the best in helping facilitate that.
I was waiting to see if anybody else wanted to jump in before I just started talking again.
Yeah, so I think just you bring up a very, very good point. And this is still pointing to the fact that we have pitfalls that the community, the ENF, other institutions, Eden have to fix, right? These are all things that we can work on. So by having a community member who is willing to put the effort to bring value to the chain in a very nice and positive light is what we want, right? So at the end of the day, we are coming up with solutions to help build EOS and EOS blockchain. And I'm hoping that the ENF will also look back on, let's say, their approach on how things were done and learn from it, and also improve on their approach. And with the ENF having these work groups, we should come up with maybe tools and ways that we can make the process a little bit more transparent, so that the voters can say that, okay, well, we voted for these BPs and the BPs took action, and that's it. But with that said, we also have Eden, which we are working on. It's an experiment being funded by the network, because the network is entrusting that human governance can also go a long way. So they are paying, I would say, funding. Let me use the word funding. They are funding Eden, so that Eden can bring on so many different ideas or people to reach consensus for the betterment of EOS network. So all these are things that we are doing to build EOS, to make it better than any blockchain that is out there, right? But it's a process, and this process has to go through what it's going through. So like, I'll bring it back to the point that I made earlier. We should not make the people who have trusted the system for so long panic, or we should not make arguments in the heat of the moment that will destroy the house that we live in. You know, I like that better, because I always say that if you burn your house down because you are mad at the government, okay, guess what? You have no place to sleep. I always tell people that. Make sure you keep that house. Find a strategy that works. Make a difference by being in the community. Don't sit and sleep in your bed and say that you have, I exaggerate a little bit, 1 billion tokens, so you are okay. Because maybe there's somebody making a decision in the chat room somewhere that's going to affect your tokens. Be part of the community. Build with the community. Bring value to the community. And someday you will see the work become very fruitful. So that's what I'm just saying, but I'm just being very optimistic. But I hope that this helps. It helps the community for us to gather and build together.
Be positive. Positive. If you're upset and you're lamenting and you're being negative, you're hurting EOS. And so let's all try our best to take a breath be positive, be diplomatic if you can't be positive at the very least.
Yeah, I was just about to say or be neutral. If you're going to be critical, try to be neutral. And I thanked you guys earlier. One of my responses was probably more on the negative side during the past 24 hours, and you guys pointed that out, and I recognized that, and will tone the language a little bit more accurately. But I do agree with kind of what you guys are saying, that we should have these things built, and maybe that's something that, you're right, maybe that is something the ENF can help facilitate the building of, and it could be something that gets pitched on Pomelo. This is clearly a public good, or it could be something that Eden helps fund or Eden helps run. I think that if it was run by Eden members, maybe that adds more credibility, because if you're in Eden, people know who you are, and that brings something to the table. And I think the only other comment I had based on what was going on is that since I have been involved in a lot of this with my other hats that I wear, as an advisor to the ENF and as a block producer, I agree that the transparency should be better. And I think this might be kind of an extreme situation, because we were dealing with very not public entities. So I don't think the privacy was necessarily intentional, but more compromised to make sure it was happening, if that makes any sense. But in general, I am 100% in agreement that we need more transparency, and we should build tools to help with transparency. So,
because there's BPs in the top 21, and they've got websites that either don't have English translations, or they do have English translations and they're bad. And it's like, if you're a top 21 producer, you can afford a decent translator. So if you've gone through like that little effort, then how much do you care about, the broader, community? And then, there's websites as well where they've got blog posts from 2 years ago, and then there's, no more than that. Well, we can see further activity from Grey Mass. But yeah, so transparency, and so I guess it's a question for the ENF as well, is like, do you see this kind of standard that has been set, set and demonstrated by today's BPs as meeting the bar? And if not, what can we do to raise it? I think everyone's got different expectations of what the chain should be, and I think it's always been an uphill battle from the start, really, because again, the thoughts about how this governance system would work was kind of like half baked from block one, and then we've tried sorting it out ourselves, and then it didn't really work, and then finally we have Eden, but then there's a question is, there's already a system. There's already whales that invest a lot. There's big players that like how the system is working, and there's big reasons why 1 token 30 votes works for some people and it doesn't work for others. So I guess we got to kind of converse with these other parties and say, hey, is there a vision for this chain that we all agree on? And perhaps if there isn't, and the differences are strong enough, then yeah, maybe a fork or maybe another chain, would be the way to go. Just being realistic. I'm not saying one chain is better than the other, or one idea is better than the other. It's just there's so many different ideas of what people think a good blockchain is, and what a good blockchain isn't. Compared to EOS and Ethereum, everyone has different tastes and stuff like that. But yeah, transparency could definitely be coming from the BPs. I'd like to see maybe a representative of each BP on Eden as well, purely so that they have to jump on the camera, actually show a face, and then not these secret ghost entities, because that is virtually as good as bloody Bitcoin miners in some cases.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty crap for a DPoS chain.
I think one perspective that makes sense to me based on what we've just talked about. And I haven't watched James's video yet. That's on my to-do list for today, but maybe one of the things we can do, instead of just saying, hey, BPs, push out more information to be transparent, we could have an organization that goes and pulls information out. Like if it was that trusted source, maybe from somewhere in Eden, they could schedule conversations with BPs, do those kinds of AMAs. I know there are a few BPs that do that actually. Like I think EdenOS does it, where they'll do AMAs with other BPs and publish it in their blog. But that's not EdenOS's mandate. It's cool that they do that, and that's very welcome. But if there was some sort of group with that mandate, that it's like, here's our job, we have this cool web page where you go and it lists like it's like a Reddit feed, and it displays the last article from each BP. And if you went to that today, most likely it would just be filled with articles about the current situation that's going on. And you could see the different perspective of each BP. Like maybe that's the kind of stuff that they'd look into. I certainly see value in that. And if there was a system for me as gray mass hat time, that I could push news into, that I knew everyone was looking at when they wanted to know what the BPs thought, that's where I'd be pushing content. It wouldn't be the forums like I'm doing now, or our specific Twitter account specifically. It could be this new thing. So I guess now we need to figure out how to get somebody to build that.
Or again, maybe the BPs aren't keen on transparency, and again, their solution for that is, again, proxying, more and more, influence to the ENF, and to Eve to be the champion. In which case, I guess we would want more transparency from the ENF itself, and then again, the ENF's opinion on the vision of EOS, and what the common man can have in terms of influence. Is this is the future of EOS still sort of Pareto principled in terms of power, and then is that further enhanced by the sort of 30 votes, 1 token? A lot of good questions for Eve. I guess I'm sure you can provide a lot of good wisdom and set some further expectations for not only for us but for the rest of the community, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Eve, isn't it? I keep saying Eves.
I go back and forth.
Plus, I just want to remind everyone that EdenOS is based in Australia, so you're welcome.
Most dangerous BP. Awesome. Well, I think to kind of cap that off, it sounds like James Smart's video is something worth watching. I'm looking forward to it after discussing it without even watching it yet. I've really appreciated his work in the past, so I'm very hopeful that I'll enjoy this video too. Did we have any closing thoughts or any parting information or anything else we wanted to tackle necessarily on this call?
Negative.
Yeah, just want to reiterate, stay positive, please. It's for the good of our community and our token. We're going to get through this. We've got a lot of great stuff going on. We've got a lot of talent in the community, and we're going to figure it out. But so important to stay positive, because more people are watching than you realize, I bet. And I often wonder how many people are posting in the main Telegram chat versus how many are just reading. I think there's a lot of readers, and so the world is watching us. So let's set a good example.
I like it.